Welcome, and thank you for joining us for Sunday service at the Center for Spiritual Living Denver. Whether you're here in person or tuning in from afar, we're grateful to share this sacred time with you. We are a loving, prospering, and inclusive community in the heart of Denver.
Our services are held in a hybrid format at the historic Grant Avenue Community Center in Sacred Place, located at 216 South Grant Street. At CSL Denver, all are welcome. We are a place, a space, and a face of love. A spiritual community practicing universal principles that enrich and transform our lives.
Your presence is a blessing. If you're joining us online, feel free to say hello in the comments so we can celebrate you and your light.
Life brings many experiences, and you never have to walk through them alone. Our licensed spiritual practitioners are available for personal prayer support. Their names and contact information can be found on our website at csldenver.org.
You may also email prayer requests to info@csldenver.org. Convenient links are included in the description of this broadcast. We extend deep gratitude for your participation, your financial contributions, generosity, and your continued support of our services, classes, and community events. If you'd like to stay connected and informed, we invite you to sign up for our weekly newsletter on our website.
We continue to live stream all services every Sunday on Facebook, YouTube, and the New Thought Media Network.
Wherever you are, you can join us in real time. Thank you for your precious attention and for being part of this beloved community. Now, take a breath, open your heart, and prepare for an experience of inspiration and spiritual nourishment.
There is a garden where dreams come true, a beautiful garden where God's grace blooms. There is a garden where everything grows, a beautiful garden where love is sown. And in this place of light and love, you can have anything that you're dreaming of. There is a garden where dreams come true, a beautiful garden. That garden is you. And in this place of light and love, you can have anything that you're dreaming of. There is a garden where dreams come true, a beautiful garden. That garden is you. Such a beautiful garden. That garden is you.
Morning, everybody. Morning. My name is Teresa Cardenas, practitioner here at Center for Spiritual Living Denver. So just take a moment, if you feel comfortable, and close your eyes for our invocation this morning. As we turn our awareness and attention to that incredible omniscient energy we call spirit, universal mind, the infinite, the all that is. And we know that as we embark on our morning this morning, on this spiritual talk and spiritual time together, that we do so knowing that the message goes out into our community and that it's heard whether you're at home, whether you're at a temple, a mosque, a synagogue, wherever you are, that at some level, this is connecting to your heart, because we are all one and we are all connected. And that universal energy is so intelligent. It is so incredibly divine that it manifests everything that we desire. We have faith that unfolds in every leaf on a tree, in every flower, in the sun itself, in the way the universe is coordinated, the way the planets stick together, that beautiful law exists even at every little micro universe within ourselves. And so we just say, thank you, Spirit. Thank you so much for all that we have and all that we will have and all that is becoming. And so it is. Our reading this morning is from my favorite book, Mark Nepo's book.
What is the name?
Mark Nepo. And I just lost the page. Can you believe that? Wow. Can't believe I did that. Well, I'll just pick the one that it opened to, okay? When in the midst of great change, it is helpful to remember how a chick is born. From the view of the chick, it is a terrifying struggle. Confined and curled in a dark shell, half formed, the chick eats all its food and stretches to the contours of its shell. It begins to feel hungry and cramped. Eventually, the chick begins to starve and feel suffocated by the ever-shrinking space of its world. Finally, its own growth begins to crack the shell, and the world as the chick knows it is coming to an end. Its sky is falling. As the chick wriggles through the cracks, it begins to eat its shell. In that moment, growing but fragile, starving and cramped, its world breaking, the chick must feel like it is dying. Yet once everything it has relied on falls away, the chick is born. It doesn't die, but falls into the world. The lesson is profound. Transformation always involves the falling away of things we have relied on, and we are left with a feeling that the world as we know it is coming to an end, because it is. Yet the chick offers us the wisdom that the way to be born while still alive is to eat our own shell. When faced with great change in self, in relationship, in our sense of calling, we somehow must take in all that has enclosed us, nurtured us, incubated us, so when the new life is upon us, the old one is within us. And Ernest Holmes says, we should have faith that there is but one mind. This mind is both the mind of man and the mind of God. They are one and the same. And now we'll have music by Bob Sima with his song, Don't Stare.
Under your feet is the greenest of grass, strongest roots watered from your past, hallowed ground where you were lost and you were found. of your feet, earth so sweet behind you now. Put your hands up in the dirt, turning it over and over and over again. And they say don't look back, it's not where you're going. The road in front, that's where you're growing. But sometimes in your mind you wanna go there. You could look back, but just don't stare. Own your truth and claim your worth and bless your path. It could have been worse, but don't give it more than a glance, because you are so much more. You are more than the dreams that never came true, more than the doors that closed on you, more than the hearts that tried to break yours in two. But your hands are in the dirt, turning it over and over and over again. And they say don't look back, it's not where you're going. The road in front, that's where you're growing. But sometimes in your mind you wanna go there. You could look back, but just don't stare. Just don't stare. Well, these years go by, but that's the all matter, because here and now is the seat of your power. Staring back at the wake has never made a ship go anywhere. And they say don't look back, it's not where you're going. The road in front, that's where you're growing. But sometimes in your mind you wanna go there. You can look back, but just don't stare. Just don't stare. Just don't stare.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. Good morning. Welcome to CSL Denver. Place, a space, and a face of love. A spiritual community teaching ancient wisdom and applying universal principles to empower our lives and the lives of others. It is so good to be here today when I just think about the goodness of God. And when I look around and see all the faces and I contemplate the topic for today of in the presence of faith, in the presence of faith. And so when I think about faith, it's an elusive term in some ways, because it often gets confused with belief or tangled up with belief. Now there is a tacit relationship, but there's a difference. There's a difference. And so as we get ready to get into that understanding of what it means to be in the presence of faith, let's take a moment to invoke the power, the mind, the intelligence of the universal that we are ready to receive. So if it feels comfortable, close your eyes or lower your gaze and just go within. Infinite Spirit, source of all there is, we pause in this sacred moment to allow your essence to fill our very being, to open our hearts and minds so that they're receptive to that subtle energy that vibrates at all times. We ask that in this moment that we open to be a vessel of your understanding, a vessel of your essence, and more importantly, a light that shines in the dark. And so we take this moment and ask that you guide us its clarity into all there is, and to open up and anchor all the words that are said today, all the feelings, all the ideas to be latched to truth. And that after we ingest all of thy essence, that we walk in a way that is clear and easy. And so we give thanks for this awareness. We're grateful to be here. We're grateful for the essence of the divine itself. And with that, we just release, we let go, and we know that we are the emanations of the Most High God, ready, willing, and able to receive. And so it is. Amen. And so, you know, there is a moment in every spiritual life when we realize that faith is not something we seek after, we reach for, we try to figure out. We realize that it is a presence that we stand in. A presence that we stand in. There's a story in the Bible, and actually it occurs in many places, but one of them is with Moses when he's in the presence of the divine, and it says you got to take off your shoes in the presence. Now, that's symbolic of saying, hey, you got to give up something, all this worldly, earthly stuff, to be in the presence of something. There's a different shift. There's a different modality. There's a different presence, for lack of a better word, that you have to be if you want to be in the presence of the divine or the presence of faith. Because in that case, we are in something that's invisible. We hear all the time that faith is the evidence of things unseen. The evidence of things unseen. And so I would invite you at this moment to just think back to a moment when you had a situation and you had no idea of how you were going to get through. Just petrified. I know I have so many. I could probably write a little book about all those moments of when I was just at wit's end. At wit's end. And all of my rational thinking and all of my suppositions and all of my so-called intelligence left me in the lurch. But when I think back on those moments and I look to see what was it that pushed me forward, what was the thing that caused me to say, all right, that thing was surrender. It was a point where we became still, or we become still, we quiet our mind and we surrender, because we tried everything that we thought would work. How many times has that happened to you? Where there's a funny thing about the human being. Somewhere along the line, we were told that we were the crown of creation, and maybe we are. But that doesn't mean we know all. And we have taken that idea and kind of flipped it around, and we think we know it all. We really do. We got this advanced science and all these things, and we think we know. But as the saying goes, the more we know, the more we realize we don't know. And so when we're in that point and we stop fighting and stop rationalizing, it is in a split second that the heart softens. The heart softens, and that creates an atmosphere that allows us to surrender. Now, this thing called atmosphere is pretty elusive. It's pretty elusive because, again, guess what? It's not seen. There's an atmosphere outside right now. We came in this morning and a couple of people said, boy, it's kind of humid in here. That's an atmosphere that is created in this room. You don't see it, but you sense it, you feel it. And as a result, everything in your body begins to react to it. You might sweat a little bit. You might feel a little warm. There's a whole manner of things that happen in these different environments. And so when we look at the presence of faith, it creates an environment. It creates an environment. And oftentimes, if we're too crown of creation, i.e. too smart, we miss all of the subtle points. And it's always the subtle points that get us through. It's always. It's not those big. Think about when you try to move from one location to another. It's easy to say, I got to move the refrigerator and the sofa and the bed. But after you do all that, you think you're done. You look around, you got all these little bits and pieces, and you're like, oh my goodness, this is going to take me forever. And you have to surrender to that moment to know that it is those small things, i.e. that still small voice, not those big things, that still small voice that moves us into the awareness of this atmosphere of faith and allows us to really get into a tone and an intentionality and a feeling. You know, that's one thing about gospel music. I have a cousin who's a internationally known gospel phenom. He teaches gospel all over the world, Japan, South America, all over the world. And one thing we often talk about when I said, you know, you don't speak no Japanese. He said, no, I don't. He said, I know a few words now, but he says, the thing with gospel is that there's a feeling that resonates. And even if they don't understand what we're singing, or I don't understand what they're saying, once we get that atmosphere charged up, the feeling moves it through. And we have to begin to rely or tune ourselves or train ourselves or whatever the right word is to step into that feeling, to step into that presence of faith, which is just the divine. That's all it is. The divine expressing itself. Rumi says this. Rumi says, silence is the language of God. All else is a poor translation. When I step into that silence, I'm in a feeling tone. I can feel the presence of the divine. The other day, the first day we got some nice rain. I sat out on my back porch and I was working, and it was kind of cloudy a little bit, little haze. And this was in the morning, so it wasn't, it was still light, but I can't even describe it. And instantly it gave me a feeling tone and took me back to when I grew up in Florida, where it rained almost every day when I was growing up. And I could remember sitting under the carport. Some of y'all might be old enough to know what a carport is. I was sitting under the carport and just looking and feeling into the atmosphere. The birds and animals were scurrying around, and there was something there that it brought tears to my eyes, really, because it took me to a feeling tone of being in touch with something greater than myself. And I submit that when we step in the presence of faith, that's what we're looking for. We're looking for that feeling tone, because from that, sometimes it makes you smile. Other times, it makes you cry. But there's something about that feeling that resonates throughout the body. Throughout the body. Now, before we move, I want to be clear about the difference between belief and faith. Now, because again, as I said earlier, they're closely related, but there's a difference, and I don't want to misquote, so I'm gonna read what I wrote here. Belief is a thought level agreement. You accept something as true, but the acceptance lives primarily in the intellect. It's a thought or idea that's based on the intellect, i.e., crown of creation. We know it all. Nothing wrong with that now. I'm not making fun of that. I'm just saying to be clear of what we're dealing with, right? A thought level agreement with an idea. You accept something as true, but the acceptance lives primarily in the intellect. But now when we move to faith, faith is the embodied spiritual certainty. The embodied spiritual certainty, it is belief that has moved from the head to the heart, to the gut, to our behavior, to our actions. Because if it's in the intellect, what's the first thing the human mind, the human person wants to do when they come up with something that intellectually they don't agree with, they don't understand, they don't approve? First thing you do is start saying, that's the first thing. I don't believe that. I don't believe that. I don't want that. I'm not listening to that. And you leave from me. Because it's just an idea. Ideas are fleeting. But once we've had enough life experience and we move into this real atmosphere of life and we feel into things, now I don't need to wrestle with the idea. I can just step into it and embody it. It becomes like a cloak. Or that Harry Potter with the cloak of invisibility, right? Put that on, boom, you just in it. You disappear into this essence because the faith will take you where you need to go. I don't need to do anything else. So if we was to narrow that down and put it in a statement, we would say this. Belief says, I think this is true. Faith says, I know this is true, and I move accordingly. And I move accordingly. The evidence of things unseen. The evidence of things unseen. So once we understand that and we move into it, now we know that it's about alignment, right? Feeling is an alignment that puts us in a place where walk by faith, not by sight, right? If I'm in alignment, if you've ever watched closely a blind person with a cane, there's a feeling tone in there that when they walk, they're in a line. You don't see them all over the place. They are they have their cane, but they're pretty much in a straight line. They're in an alignment when they're walking, and they can't see anything. They got that cane to understand parameters and thing, but there's a feeling. They have stepped into a feeling tone and atmosphere that says, I can go. They've embodied this idea of faith and sight and moving. So thus, faith is our cooperation with the unseen patterns of life. We cooperate with it. We don't fight it. You know, there's a saying by Lao Tzu from the Taoist tradition that says this: the deepest truth cannot be spoken because it exists beyond the surface of appearances. I'm gonna read that again. The deepest truth cannot be spoken because it exists beyond the surface of appearances. Now, if I'm blind, there's nothing apparent but darkness. At least that's what, what I think most of us, if we have sight, we close our eyes. You know, that's what now we don't know actually what they're seeing. They may tune into something else, but that's what we have to deal with. Beyond these appearances, faith is that eye of spiritual perception that reveals the divine activity that is already present. It's already present. We have to lean in. We have to feel in. Now that could be a tall order, especially if we've been trained to believe half of what half of what you hear and none of what you see. But Meister Eckhart said this: the eye with which I see God is the same eye with which God sees me. We have to begin, I believe, to look differently at things. We have been so conditioned. And I'm going to give this title of this book, and if you can find it, which I know you can, it's old book. It's called The People Shapers by a guy named Vance Packard. And it was written back in like 1977, 78. And he was I think he was at Columbia and for a master's. He was a journalist. And he looked at behavior modification, if you will, and how in the future, which is now from within, how we would be controlled, or how we would be programmed to be controlled, thus giving up our being able to step into the presence and feel our way, that we were going to be involved in an environment that took that ability away. And 50 years later, if you get that book and read it, you just read the first couple of chapters, it's going to compel you to read the rest, because he's talking about stuff back then, genetic modification and behavior modification, and how we train people to be consumers. And that's what we are now. We are consumers of everything, including religion. We have this idea of what it is, and somebody has told us that very few times do we question or go in research mode to understand if something's true when it doesn't sit right. But if we step into the presence of faith, we become still, we can begin to discern, which is look at it from a different perspective. That perspective, you know, perspective is that thing that allows us to see beyond sight. To see beyond sight. And that's what we need today, because if we was to look at just all of the sight stuff that's going on, some of us would just say, I'm checking out. I am just absolutely checking out. But what did Jesus, the master teacher, say when you come up with those kind of situations that seem insurmountable or just terrible in their essence? Jesus said, "Oh, you of little faith. Oh, you of little faith." Meaning, oh, you who cannot see beyond these circumstances. Oh, you who do not trust that feeling tone within you. The evidence of things unseen. When we can do that, we allow ourselves now to be emissaries of the Most High God. We can go in the lion's den like Daniel and wrestle with the lion. Wrestle, because boy, there's some big lions right now that we're wrestling with. And you can't be afraid. You have to have perception, perspective, and courage and faith is that and more. Is that and more. So as we begin to really understand how we stand in the presence of faith, I want to give us 3 ideas to wrestle with, to work with, to lean into, so that we, as I forget who said it, but that was that thing, we become the ones who we've been waiting for. So many people have said it. I don't know who originally said it, but we're going to say it this morning. We become the ones we've been waiting for. And how do we do that? By standing in the presence of faith. Standing in the presence of faith. So the first thing is this. Faith is a creative atmosphere. We talked a little bit about atmosphere. I would encourage everyone this week to go and get your Googles or get your Webster Dictionary or get your AI and ask it to define for you what an atmosphere is. Now, first, it's going to talk about the air and that atmosphere. But it'll go down and it'll give you some more definition. And I don't want to throw anything away because everybody's going to come to that answer, to that question with a different perspective from their lived experience, which is what faith activates when we move. But I want to say this, or let me put it this way. This is what Anonymous said. I'm just going to say it like it is. Anonymous said this: we do not change the world. We change the atmosphere in which the world appears. We don't change the atmosphere. There's no way for me to change the humidity in this room right now. But if I start changing the way I put myself in relationship to it, it'll change. I still might sweat, but it won't be as bothersome. As a matter of fact, if a cool breeze comes through, I might enjoy that sweat. Keeps me cool. But we have to begin to understand that we have a relationship, an entanglement with the environment that we live in. As a matter of fact, in everything that we live in, this is a unity, a universe, a oneness. And that's what it means to be in the presence of faith. When we understand that it's all connected and that we have agency in how it moves, then we can move. Ernest Holmes said this: we are immersed in an infinite creative power that responds to us. That responds to us. Now, I've read that many times, but I read it the other day, and boy, that hit me hard. That it responds. So if I'm walking around talking about I got this, that, or the other problem, guess what? The universe is going to respond to that. It's going to respond to that. And it's going to give me subtle or not so subtle situations to confirm that. It's like, someone said, it's like having a magic wand. Your word is your wand. There's a book somewhere that somebody wrote that once you say something, it's like a magic wand. It makes it happen. So we have to be careful and be understanding about the creative power we have in the atmosphere. Because everything begins in consciousness. That's the essence of this teaching. Everything begins in consciousness. And when consciousness is saturated with faith of this kind, it creates an atmosphere of expectancy that is felt, that is recognized, and that is responsive to what we do and say. Now, once we understand that we have to create this atmosphere, or we have to interact with this atmosphere of faith, the next thing is, we've already talked about it, we're just reviewing, perspective. Faith is a spiritual perception. Faith is a spiritual perception. And Charles Fillmore from Unity says this: faith is the perceiving power of the mind linked with the power to shape substance. The power to shape substance. That we know from the science that there's this thing called entanglement, and that everything is connected to everything. And when we are able to put some power behind that, some direction behind that, we cause invisible things to become visible. Because if we think about it, if we step back and think about it, there is nothing in this room, in this world, that we can touch, feel, hold, that did not start as an invisible idea, concept in somebody's mind. Now, we can go into a whole nother lecture on that, about archetypes and energy and how things precipitate down to the material world. But at their essence, it is an invisible thought, idea, word that creates the thing itself, i.e. not God thing itself, but the thing itself that we're trying to hold on to. It's a perception. It's a feeling. You know, it's hard. If they say in the Tao, the Tao would say, the Tao that can be spoken is not the real Tao. I can't express to you a feeling. I can't express to you an emotion. You have to obtain it for yourself. And that's what we're trying to do with these teachings. We're trying to get individuals and communities and a whole globe to be able to be perceptive and feel into life. And that you know, faith asks us to believe in the invisible, the very essence of the universe that demands complete surrender and discernment. Because if I'm dealing with invisible things, I can't be judgmental. I got to be discerning. Because if I'm judgmental, all of my past experiences are going to feed into it. But if I'm discerning, now it's like tuning a violin. I'm discerning, am I on C or am I on A? What's going on here? Then we can move. Because when we realize that principle is not limited by precedence, then faith sees beyond history, it sees beyond possibilities, and it steps into truth. And last but not least, faith is the actual alignment with that invisible force, that invisible energy, that invisible presence. Sir R. Bendall, which was one of Ernest Holmes's inspirations, he said this: faith is the soul's witness to something not yet manifest. Faith is the soul's witness to something that is not yet manifest. When that happens, we are able to really, really say yes to life. When we can align with that invisible force, we can say yes, and I don't need anybody else to, well, I don't need them for nothing. Matter of fact, if I got my hand firmly in the hand of the divine, I'm not ignoring anybody, and I'm not discounting your information, because it can most definitely be helpful. But once I got that, you know, there's that old gospel song that say, get God on the main line and tell him what you want. On the main, you know, that song came out when they had party lines, right? And people could just pick up your phone and hear your conversation. But you want to get God on the main line. I don't want my neighbor's chatter in my ear. That's what happens when we get aligned with that invisible force. In this state, we trust the invisible pattern behind all manifestations. The invisible pattern behind, we trust that. We hold that. We lean on that. We know that. And as I close, I want to just give this story. This is another book that, if you can find it, it's an old book. It's called God, I Listen. By I want to spell her name right. is called Eula McClaney, E-U-L-A, Eula McClaney. Eula McClaney grew up on a sharecropping farm in Alabama. And she had all manner of heartaches and hardships. And she was so frustrated trying to make life work. And after she'd done all the things that we normally do to get a foothold, she sat down and she said, God, I'm listening. God, I'm listening. In that exhaustion, she said, I'm not listening for instructions. I'm not listening for rescue. I'm listening for presence. I'm listening for your presence. I'm feeling into your presence. And in that quiet moment, she realized that the problem wasn't the world around her. It was the atmosphere within her. She had been praying from fear. She had been acting from worry and thinking from limitation. But when she surrendered and said, God, I listen, I'm listening, everything changed. Eula McClaney went on to be an extremely successful business person and a philanthropist. And in, I think it was like 1987 when Tom Brady, was the mayor of, I'm thinking about the football guy, but it's not him, it was the mayor of LA. She donated a large amount of money and just created a philanthropy opportunity based on listening to God. From a sharecropper to a philanthropist. After she tried it all, she said, I'm listening. And so the essence of this, she began to practice listening, truly listening every day, not to the noise of the world, but to the stillness of spirit. And as her inner atmosphere shifted, her outer world began to reorganize. Opportunities appeared, support arrived, doors opened, not because she changed the world, but because she changed the field in which the world appeared. That's what we do. That's what happens when we step into the presence of faith. And so her testimony is simple. Stop talking at God and start listening to God. Stop talking at God and start listening to God. Faith becomes a presence, and that presence becomes the thing that moves you forward on the path. Let us pray. So as we step into this presence called now, this presence where the divine intelligence of the universe rests in all places, we open our hearts, minds, and we allow it to activate our inner sight, to activate our inner hearing, and to tune our instrument of soul to the universal sound of God. Because it is there that we are able to transform the seen from the unseen. We're able to move in a way that may not look as if it's doing the right thing, but as that attunement shifts, as that feeling tone arises, we know that we are in the right place at the right time. Because we know we are emanations of the Most High God, that we are one with that essence. We are one with that vibration, and we are tuned to it. And in that attunement, we declare that we can move beyond appearances, that we can create from our mind, our heart, our body, and our soul when we feel the presence of the divine, which is faith in action. And so we allow ourselves to be just that, faith in action, moving without sight, and stepping into a field, an atmosphere of awareness where we know exactly where to be, exactly what to do, and exactly how to do it. And so we just give thanks for that idea, that understanding, that ability to move beyond appearances. And we release, we let go, and we know it is so. And so it is. Amen. And so call to actions, these will be on the website. Cultivate your creative atmosphere daily. Choose one practice each morning that sets the climate of your consciousness, a prayer, an affirmation, a moment of gratitude, or a breath of intention. The second one, speak into your atmosphere. Use your words as instruments of creation. Declare something today that shifts your field. I am surrounded by divine possibility. My atmosphere is creative and receptive. Find something that resonates with you and begin to activate this field. An affirmation to hold that for the week. I stand in the presence of faith. Today I walk in a field of divine possibilities, and so it is. Amen. And so it's now that time of sacred giving where we want to give thanks for everyone that's here in presence and online and the giving to support this idea, this teaching. And if it feels comfortable, place your hand on your heart and repeat our affirmation that's going across the screen. This perfect gift is spirit and form, circulating and blessing all that it touches. Freely I give and joyously I receive, and so it is. Amen. And so now Teresa is going to come up and give us announcements, I think. Yep. Yeah. And just want to mention that we have the foundation class coming up in September. Go on the website. If you haven't seen it, sign up. It's going to be a blast. It's going to give the basics of our teachings, and I'll stop and let Teresa come. Yeah, information's on the table, and information on the website and in the newsletter. Teresa.
Okay, our announcements for today, and I'll say a little bit more about class. We did get the new Science of Mind magazines, and so they're available for $10, but everything from last month and the previous months are free, so grab one. Okay, Community Cafe is next week, and it is going to be a picnic at City Park. There's a map over there. For those of you who can't access it online, there's going to be a map online as well. It's going to be, we're all going to meet as a group directly south of the bandstand. They've rebuilt that now, and it'll be directly south. You'll be able to park on the parallel or perpendicular streets along 17th, and maybe one of us will get a balloon or something so that you can find us. Or we'll just yell. Foundations of Science of Mind class and Spirit is engaging in Introduction to the Heart of Science of Mind teachings. In this course, students will explore universal spiritual principles, discover practical tools for everyday living, and learn to apply Science of Mind practices into their daily lives in ways that foster greater connection, clarity, and joy. And we'll answer questions for you after service. Whether new to the teaching or seeking a fresh perspective, participants will find a supportive learning community and opportunities for personal transformation. The class is 6 modules, and it weaves together experiential learning, diverse teaching styles, open dialogue, meaningful connection opportunities, and practical application. Students will leave with a solid foundation in spirits of mind and a confident understanding of how these timeless principles can actively transform their lives today. Is that the beginning of practitioner training? Foundations, yes. So if you want to ever become a practitioner, that would be your first class to take. The required text for that is A New Design for Living by Ernest Holmes. It will be Tuesday nights from 6:30 to 9:30 online, correct? Online. So our classes are great. A lot of dialogue, a lot of fun, a lot of laughing. Our curiosity corner in the back are has been replenished again by Ernest Holmes, so nice of him, and other New Thought authors. We have set up a bargain basement table on that side of the room, which are like $1 a piece for the books. We have gently used and new books and CDs and DVDs and lots of spiritual treasures. There's some tarot back there I've seen. So we are so blessed to have New Thought Media Network and Diego as our service provider. We invite you to go to www.ntmedia.org and check out what they have. They have over 40 hours of weekly broadcast programs. We are so truly blessed by everyone who has chosen to support CSL Denver by showing up on Sundays and watching our services online. We know that as we move through the rest of this year, the divine beloved is guiding and loving each and every one of us. Thank you for joining us. And we will close out with Gary Lynn Floyd. There is a divine dialogue after service. Okay, thank you.
Breathe every breath. Release your love without waiting, slowly unhinge. You ain't got a thing to fear, looks like love is growing here. So take your guard and let it down, go deeper still until you come unwound. Unbound. You can stop waiting for love to find you. Look inside your heart. Love's already who you are.
New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.